Welcome to the Astute Prosperity Podcast with your host, John Way. Join us as we interview successful business owners and professionals, uncovering the strategies that fuel their personal, professional, and financial success. Discover what it takes to thrive.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Astute Prosperity Podcast. My name is John Way, and today we have the pleasure to have Nelly Sanchez on our podcast today. Say hi to the audience, Nelly.
Hi, John. I am so happy to be here with you.
Awesome. Thank you. And so Nelly, as I mentioned, this is a really easygoing podcast. We just wanted to share with all of our audience, different stories and lessons learned for all of the different real estate investors and like yourself. How you got to where you are today, and where you plan to go from here, what your goals are, and all that. So, with that said, do you want to share with me and maybe the audience on a little bit of your real estate story?
Yes, of course. My real estate story actually it's a little bit new. I haven't been in the business for too long, and being transparent is more on the side. I do have a corporate job, and it's very demanding. And I've been based on some of my experience on the corporate role, I experienced a really difficult time on my last employer, where it kind of made me question, do I want to look at other alternatives for options? And more than anything, it was more long-term for retirement or for alternative ways to make income. And I've always been very interested in real estate. So I started with a lot of the podcasts that most people know, The Bigger Pocket, reading a couple of real estate investing books. And then our first rental happened just a little bit over 2 years ago. That was kind of like sort of by default, because we started with our homestead, and then we moved into another property. Because we knew we wanted to invest in real estate, we just decided to leave it as a long-term rental, and then we'll transfer to another property. Last year is when I joined a membership or mentorship. Is when I started with my own LLC, and then last year we purchased a total of 3 rental properties. Wow. One of them was a cut-down job rehab that majority, about 90% of the work was done by my husband and myself.
Oh, wow.
A lot of lessons to be learned on that particular one. But yes, so now we hold 4 rentals in our current home. At some point, we want to move out and leave it as another rental, and that would be the 5th one for us. So newer, but last year was pretty busy from that standpoint. And this year, we're focusing on the primary resident, trying to kind of fix it up a little bit more because of the long-term plans that we have, just to continue to grow at least this portfolio for us.
Nice. Wow. So it's a pretty short period of time that you were able to acquire such a quick pace, right?
Yes and no. Yes, it was a short period of time, but we, again, knowing some of the finance aspects, I know about cash or refinance. I educate myself a lot on investing and how to get some of the funding. Is our original property, it took us almost 10 years to pay it off. So we basically paid it off. So I knew I needed to start with money. And real estate is expensive. It's not something cheap. So I'm like, if I want to get into this and I'm looking for opportunities, I need to have funds, because as much as people make it seem that it's so easy that anybody's going to lend you anything, when you're just new and you don't have enough experience, you don't have enough contacts, you haven't built those relationships, very unlikely you're going to have anybody just throwing money at you just to invest in real estate. So I did a cash out refinance on the property that it was paid off. That had taken us almost 10 years to pay it off,
Mm.
you know?
Mm.
So to say that it's fast,
I see. I see.
no, necessarily. It took a long time to build that
Mm.
where the property then grew in equity where we could do a cash out refinance. So I started with those funds. With those funds, then I said, okay, with this, I want to start on as many properties as I can get with these funds, right? So how do I, can leverage some of this stuff? So one of them was a seller finance. Another one was that it was a hard money lender who then turned into a DCSR loan. Then the last one was a subject to property that we got. So,
Wow.
So again, it's it's knowing the different strategies available, but that takes a lot of education, a lot of research, a lot of stress.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's stressful, but I mean, it's rewarding on the other end, right? But then, I think you mentioned a couple of really good points there. Like you acquire these buildings through what we call creative financing, right? So, subject to the seller financing,
Mhm.
like how how did you learn about these strategies, and how did you finally decide to go with one or the other, or just like, how did these opportunities come about?
Okay, so how did I learn about this? YouTube, podcast, Google, reading books.
Wow, that's great. That is
um,
really like that. Yeah, it just shows how much you've invested in yourself. I mean, learning through cost effective ways. That's great.
yes, I had been educating myself for the previous 2 years before last year. Like
Yeah.
I knew a lot of the strategies. So when I joined the mentorship last year, it was towards the end of January. I already knew a lot of the strategies, but I was really afraid to take the first step and said, okay, become official, right? So paying for that mentorship, not that it was, a little bit of money, it
Sure.
gave me the courage to say, you can do this, this, you'll get there, and you have to. If you want to do something, you just got to do it. You
Yeah.
can't just be educated and learning about strategies if you don't take action, right? So it did. And again, it did give me opportunity to meet more investors, especially in my area, because the program is more for investors, especially in Texas, all throughout Texas. So, it did allow me to have that additional network connection of people, and just the ability to say, just do it, right? You just got to pull the plug. And that's how, I was able to start doing some of the strategies that they also discussed. How do these particular deals came to me? A lot of information is available. Most people tell me you can't find any deals if you don't pay for a marketing strategy. Every single one of these deals, I pay zero. And I spend a lot of money on marketing. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I believe marketing is important.
Yeah.
But for some reason, all the marketing that I've done so far and the thousands of dollars that I spent on that have paid off nothing.
Funny how that happened.
Every single one
Interesting.
of these deals is available on Facebook groups. I sign up for so many different notifications from different either people that just do dispositions or people that are just wholesaling deals, or they market them. And whenever I'm looking for a particular deal, I already know kind of what is going to be my criteria or my
Sure.
parameters.
Sure.
So I go with a very specific set of parameters. And I think that's what helps me kind of drive some of the extra noise out and then just focus on the items that I'm looking for.
Nice. Wow, that's really awesome. So uh Thank you for sharing that. So like so where you are now, you now have four properties, right?
For property. Correct.
Okay. So where's the ultimate goal for you, and where do you foresee yourself going?
Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. When my husband and I first discussed about investing in real estate, I had one goal. I told him I am looking for an alternative, especially for us for retirement when we can no longer work. We can't necessarily rely on Social Security. What if for some reason we don't save enough money for, down the road? Can we just get 5 properties in 30 years? They'll be paid off. That's our retirement bucket because again, we're planning to move back home to Mexico, which the
Mm,
cost of living is a little bit easier. And I
mhm,
said, I think 5 paid off properties can really sustain us in addition to some of the other items that we
mhm,
are planning to have for
mhm,
retirement.
mhm.
So the fact that I'm already on 4 and I'm thinking my current home could at some point be the 5th one, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm done. But the truth is that my husband absolutely despises his job, like truly hates his job. I love my job. I can do my job for the rest of my life, but I love, but I love my job also because of the people that I work with,
Mm,
the company, the culture that I'm in right now.
mhm,
That's not what I had before.
mhm,
So now looking ahead, I am reconsidering maybe 5 houses aren't going to be enough. They're going
mhm.
to be enough for retirement, but they're not enough in today's economy, right? They're not
Right,
enough
right,
if my husband or I lose our jobs, or if
right.
we do want to have that, financial flexibility to step away for a
Mhm,
bit or,
mhm,
so that's changing a little bit some of our perspective if we just want to continue,
mhm.
continue to build a portfolio where it can just sustain us to cover, especially, the fixed costs that we have.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Got it. Well, and do you think how long do you think you'll be able to get there?
I'm giving myself a 10 years.
10 years. Okay.
hmm
I
5
think
to
you
10 years, we should be able to meet our goals.
I think so too. I really think so too. I think you'll get there before then.
But sometimes life throws at you
Sure.
surprises, and
Yeah.
even at work, I'm like, I like to under promise and over
Over
deliver.
deliver. Right. Exactly. No, I love that. I love that mentality. I really do. I live by that every day as well.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah. Under promise, over deliver.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so Nelly, what would you say if you were to not sure if you would, let's just say like, you were talking to somebody, let's just say you were talking to yourself, like when you first started this 10 years ago, right? When you first bought your first house. And what's the best piece of advice you would give to somebody like yourself that's just starting out in their first buying their first piece of real estate? Like, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give them? Um, you know,
Um, can I have two?
sure, go for it. Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Well, the first one is trust your gut. Trust yourself. Um, you've gotten yourself in life far because of a reason. Sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for things that we know. And I think in my case, when things have gone sideways, it's because I decided to ignore that, right? So I would say just trust your gut. Second piece is you are the only person responsible for your own success or lack of or failure, whatever you want to call it. But don't tell anybody else to dictate that for you. Like you know your goals, you know your skill sets, you know what you're capable of, you know the items that you don't have, right? So in this day and age, people always try to compare to others. Don't do that. That's just a detriment to to yourself, to your goals, to your plans, to even sometimes your desire to continue to go forward, right? Because you're always trying to measure yourself against somebody else. Just don't. You are you. And again, it's another lesson that kind of cost me, especially last year. When I started, it was people telling me, you got to do this or you're not going to be successful. You got to do this. Or, always saying, if you don't do this, you won't be successful. You won't, you're a failure. And it was hard in the beginning, because you are taking some advice sometimes from people that have years of experience and, ahead of you. And it did at times, it made me think that maybe I wasn't going to be able to make it through. And you know what? One day I said, enough with the noise. That person has its own journey, its own goals, its own skill sets. I don't know what that person has that I don't. Because a lot of times the people are just giving you the highlight reel, right? They're not giving you the struggles necessarily. So I'm like, you know what? It's them. I listen, but then I try to put it in my own perspective, right? Put it in your own glasses too. So
that is awesome. Thank you for sharing. It feels like more than two. that was but that's it. No. That's all good stuff though. That's really all good stuff. So next question is what's the one book that you would recommend for our audience to read? It doesn't have to be real estate. It could be anything, any book that you recommend.
I'm going to recommend the book that got me starting to be interested in real estate. And it's a book that is talked about by many individuals, but probably for a reason.
Okay.
Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read that book, and even before I knew about the podcast, about when I said I want to invest in real estate, that was the first book that I said, okay, it like spoke to me in some clarity. So I'm going to recommend the book. I love to read, so I have a lot of books, but that's my number one book that I will recommend anybody to read.
Awesome.
Especially people interested in real estate. So.
I know exactly. That is the Godfather book for anyone trying to start in real estate for sure. Thank you, Nelly, for that. So before we end the session today, if our audience wants to get a hold of you, how do they go about doing so? Like, do you have a Instagram or how do you prefer people to get in touch?
I am very honest. I'm not a person that I live in social media. I restarted an account on Facebook because of the groups that I'm in for real estate investing.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to find me, Facebook is the only one, and then they have Instagram that is kind of comes with it. So my handle is Nelly SP85. You can find me there. I am in the DFW. I primarily invest in the DFW, but I love connecting with people, especially like-minded individuals who want to invest in not just real estate. I do invest in, in other asset class, other than real estate, even syndications. I invested in a syndication, so.
Nice. That's awesome. All right. Well, yeah. So, audience, if you're in the DFW area and want to chat or get connected with Nelly, please do so. Nelly, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you joining us today and sharing all those wisdom and actually, definitely I even learned something. So for sure, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And then best of luck to you. I know you will be successful and you'll get to your goal within 10-year time frame.
Well, John, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have me in your podcast.
Thank you so much, Nelly. Appreciate it. Best of luck to you.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Astute Prosperity Podcast. Want to be featured on the show? Head over to astuteprosperitypodcast.com/guest and apply to share your success story with our listeners.